Welcome to Deadball TV, everybody. This is part 2 of the series with Martin Lowe from the Asian Game, and this episode is going to be focused on the Central Asian and Steppe countries and how they performed at the Asian Cup. You guys leave a like on the video and hit subscribe if you like Asian footy content. Let's start with Tajikistan, Martin, the debutants, ranked 106th coming into this tournament. A team that, not to flex, I did have them advancing to the knockouts. Why do you think this team managed to be so successful at this tournament?
A couple of reasons. I think the quality of, well, I'll go for the obvious one, which you kind of cited, and I think most people, if they actually did the draw, they had a nice draw, which I think we've got to accept in terms of they were in the easy group. But I think there is a development of quality in that team over the last decade, and that's some of it's intentional in terms of coming through Istiklal or the kind of nominal youth teams within Tajik football's setup. There hasn't been a focused effort in terms of funding towards youth football in Tajikistan, but it's been a kind of a nice kind of segue from the investment that's been put into the Champions Istiklal. They've had a number of coaches along the last 5 years that have kind of made them disciplined, made them understand kind of how to play a kind of a more typical European brand of football, but more of a conservative brand. But then you had somebody like Petr Sigat that came in to save Asian Cup qualification and gave them that belief. And I think he's one of those kind of enigmatic figures in Asian football, and what makes Asian football. Someone who's ultra positive, attacks the game, believes in his players and believes in the country, and he just really kind of took them from probably a 7 out of 10, which they probably were under Osman Toshev, who was building that team, to actually start pushing them to you're capable to go 8, 9 out of 10. And yeah, I think that kind of enthusiasm that we saw of Tajikistan was built from the coach onwards, and I think that's where it kind of built from.
With Peter Segert, has he been given a contract extension? Do you know what the latest is with him?
I don't believe he has yet. He will be given one from Tajikistan, and whether he'll take it is going to be the big question. And there's the suggestion that he's already kind of eyeing up kind of other roles within the Gulf that might obviously give him a bit more of a kind of a lucrative contract. But saying that, there are funds available in Tajikistan, so it's depending on kind of his boss, which is the president's son, no less. So you've got kind of that kind of key right up to the top of the country. If they see kind of World Cup qualification as something that they might have an opportunity for, I don't think it's going to happen. But if that's something that they really want to have a go at, then you may kind of stump up the money and try and keep him. I worry that he'll go to. There's enough people that have kind of seen how good he is, and the kind of character he is to actually bring him back somewhere else. But it might not happen until the summer.
I was definitely surprised by the technical level of this team. The one thing that I feel like really held them back was the lack of a true finisher. I felt like they didn't have a guy up top who could put the balls in the back of the net. I think Jalilov was one of the top players at the Asian Cup in shots, but I mean, the chances this guy was missing. I felt bad for him because he did have a lot of the offensive burden, but he just couldn't score. And we saw that against UAE, that made the game go to penalties. Against China, that game really shouldn't have been close after the first half. They do really have a goal scoring problem. Do you think that's a personnel issue? Do you think that's something Peter Segert can fix? Is there a guy who maybe just didn't get called up who could address that? What would you say?
Well, one of the kind of limitations of Petr Sigat is that he is fiercely loyal to his first 11, and he said that since he kind of started. And if you look back, he barely changes his first 11, which is brilliant in terms of you've got a kind of synergy within that team and to understand when to hit it. It's terrible when those players aren't available, and then you have to kind of rethink that. You mentioned Jalilov. His cousin Manu Shekhar is the all-time record goal scorer for Tajikistan. This was supposed to be his kind of showing to be the centre forward and score the goals. Unfortunately, he contracted cancer last summer, and it's been an emotional kind of scenario for both the Tajik national team, but also the league, where Jalilov has been kind of such a key player through that. Thankfully, it looks like the cancer itself is kind of getting better. He was in the crowd for some of the games in Qatar, But they missed him massively. There's no real kind of out and out goal scorer that they can call upon, and Shalilov would have been that kind of first name on the team sheet. I think Soyrov and Samirev both offered different options. One's a big striker, one's just a quick striker, but neither of them are really at that kind of level when you start to get to the latter stages of the Asian Cup. They are young players coming through. It'll give them good experience, and I think it'll push through. But I think everybody's waiting, well, hoping and praying that Jalilov can step foot on a pitch again. But the main thing is obviously his health, and hopefully he's going to be better in that perspective. But as I mentioned, Segat's key kind of concern for him was that he doesn't like swapping and changing. So that meant that he didn't practice many of his strikers and until it was too late, unfortunately.
Yeah, thanks for that update. I was going to ask what the status was, so I'm glad to hear that he's doing better. Will the football continue? I hope so, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. Do you think that this performance at the Asian Cup, do you think there's any Tajiks who might get a move abroad? Because I think there were several standouts. I thought Hananov, that guy looks like, I think he's 23 years old, looks like the real deal at center back. Yatimov, maybe a long shout for goalkeeper of the tournament. Long shout. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying he's in there, but could be nominated. Shukurov,
Mm-hmm.
stud in the midfield. That guy was so good. There's some very good players here. Do you see any of them getting a move abroad to a different league, maybe a more competitive league?
Yeah, definitely. I think the opportunities are there, and I think given obviously they're Central Asian, it's easier to get into more of those Eastern European leagues than other areas of Asia. Shukurov has already he was a kind of a bolt from the blue. Really, he's been playing at Kushtosh, who've a mid-table kind of Tajik team, which you can imagine is not exactly the most the most quality of teams, really, and really got called up into. And we go back to Segat's kind of adamancy of kind of first 11s. Zhurabayev was another that got injured on the eve of the tournament, and it was kind of like, who the hell are we going to play in centre mid? We haven't tried anybody else in centre mid for the last year, and Shukurov kind of pulled out of the blue and has had an absolute stunning tournament. So he had his pick in many ways of Tajik clubs to go to, but he's gone to Tbilisi in Georgia. So that's a really good move for him. And hopefully he
Okay.
makes the move from that perspective. Yatimov, yeah, I agree in terms of giving him another opportunity in those leagues. He's been to Russia once before in his career. I don't think he played a minute, but he kind of developed through that. It'd be nice for him to go back. I still have a little bit concerns about his decision making. He is getting better with age. I have to remember he's only 25. Most of these players have come through from when they were 18, 19, and I've seen a lot of them. And it makes it feel like they're about 29, 20, 30. So he's still a developing age for a goalkeeper. So, yeah, there is time for him for that. And Hananov, as you mentioned, he hasn't really had the opportunity, but he is at Persepolis in Iran. He hasn't
Oh, okay.
really had the opportunity. So both Hananov, the centre back, and the right back, Safarov, both went to Persepolis a couple of years ago. Hananov stayed. There's obviously more potential there with Hananov, but he hasn't really had the minutes as such. So there will be a couple that I think there'll be iron moves towards Uzbekistan, the bigger brother really of the Central Asian region. But yeah, all credit to Shukurov. That's the one that everybody's quite excited about.
Yeah, he looks like a stud. A team that didn't look like they had too many studs was Kyrgyzstan. And this team is difficult for me to assess because I feel like they really just shot themselves in the foot, with the red cards against Saudi Arabia, how they came out against Thailand. Is this team as bad as they looked at the Asian Cup, or is there something more here?
It's an interesting one because I think as much as when we compare 2019 with 2023, we were debutants in 2019 and they made it through to the knockout stages. They scraped through, but they got through in the end by playing a little bit more of an attacking brand of football, and that kind of got them through.
Mm,
And that was under Alexander Krestinin, who brought them through over the last 10 years. Stefan Tarkovic, the new coach, as he keeps saying in every single interview that he has, he's given a mandate to look towards the next Asian Cup, so bringing through the younger players from that. So we already knew at the back of his mind that he wasn't expecting anything at this Asian Cup, which is a shame because I think if they kind of put on a kind of a more an attacking focus, which they have done in World Cup qualification, this is a team that beat Oman and only narrowly lost in Malaysia in World Cup qualification only in November. They had the potential. I just think it was one of those that they got a little bit negative in their mindset, so they were really taken aback by a goal against Thailand, so they kind of didn't really get into that game. Saudi Arabia are always on the hide into nothing. They had an early red card in that, so that didn't really work. And they just didn't
Mhm.
really go against Oman, another team that they really needed to win. Neither of them really went for it. So it's just a mentality thing. It just felt the whole game, the whole camp felt really despondent. Every press conference felt despondent. There was a
Mhm.
couple again, a couple of injuries that kind of would have not helped them, but it was a frustrating one, and I think I don't think they're going in the right direction either as a country in general, but with the coach as well. So fingers crossed it will change.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you thought the future was bright or dark for this national team, but it sounds like you think they're slightly trending downwards. It was very confusing watching them against Oman because surely they need 3 points if there's any hope of doing anything. And I mean, we've already talked about Oman in the other video. They did not have a very good Asian Cup, but I was frustrated. I don't have any emotional attachment to Kyrgyzstan, and I was annoyed. I was angry watching these games because I'm like, do you guys not realize if you don't score again, you're out?
Mm.
And they didn't really go for it, and that's why I don't know how to assess the team. I don't know if there was some bad locker room juju or what was going on for their performance, but I hear what the manager might be saying. Oh, we need to focus on 2027. But when you have Thailand in the group, with all due respect, who were in chaos coming into the Asian Cup, you need to be circling that match and say we can get three. And they got pretty much outside the opening 25 minutes, which looked like it could have been a promising Asian Cup campaign. Disaster, like ever since the 30th minute against Thailand. And yeah, I don't know if these boys have really much of a prayer. I do think they showed grit against Saudi Arabia. Defensively they look like they can be solid, but I don't know. I think World Cup qualifying, I think it's over. I think it's over for Kyrgyzstan, the Kyrgyz Republic. Real quickly, because I know you don't have a lot of time. Uzbekistan, I just want to ask you, was this a successful Asian Cup campaign for them?
Probably not, but there's a lot of
I completely
mitigations.
agree.
Sorry.
I completely agree. But go on.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of mitigations for it. I don't think it was necessarily their fault. For anybody that calls for Sherko Kasanech's head for it is ridiculous. He's stabilised and really kind of started to kind of gel this well-oiled team. But I think they just had a massive bad luck in terms of injuries, and that's probably where they need to assess: is it something to do with how their training methods, etc., and how that worked? Losing Shamuradov before the tournament, so anybody that loses their biggest player is going to have a massive issue. If Son Heung-min missed out, Korea would have been in a completely different state of play. Losing Alikov on the day before in terms of your key centre back, then you lose your two wing backs within the first game. You've got people that are going down with flu. You've got people getting suspended. It was every week there was somebody else getting injured.
Mhm.
So I think that was going to be a difficulty. They will look at that Qatar game and say, could we have done better? Could we have approached it in a bit more of an attacking sense? And I think that's what needs to be kind of focused on as World Cup qualification goes along, because I think they've got the attacking qualities there. But a number of the kind of key players are just too young at the moment and haven't got the right experiences. So Faizuliev, Uranov, they showed flashes, but they probably weren't as kind of consistent as we were expecting. But they are very young, so all in all, it's not the end of the world. I didn't expect too much from it. I know a number of people going, "Oh, this could be like the Qatar of 2019, this young team coming through," but it probably is where we're at the moment. So I was a bit disappointed, but I understand why it was the case, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand as well. In the comments, let us know if there was a bigger injury than Shamordov for Uzbekistan. I think you could say that that was the most impactful omission, unless I'm forgetting like some absolute stud who plays for the UAE that didn't end up playing. I think on the bright side for Uzbekistan, they are very young, and I think you saw guys like Kolmatov. I thought he was very impressive.
Mhm.
I think Katanich got that wrong. I think he needs to play against Qatar, and I think he will rue that decision to kind of go with the midfield and attacking set that he did in that game. But I thought Kolmantov looked good. Fezalayev, I mean, arguably coming out party. I know they already qualified for the U20 World Cup, so maybe he got a little shine there. Kusanov in the back. what a stud. I mean, that guy looks like the truth. And I don't know what the odds are looking like for the U23 Asian Cup, which is going to be, for those who don't know, the qualifier for the Paris Olympics. I believe the top 3 Asian teams go. You got to be thinking the Uzbeks, with all the players that are going to be at this Asian Cup and also potentially at the U23, you have to be thinking they're favorites surely to win that tournament. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely, and they have been for the last couple of times. So the U23s, the U19s, and then Uzbekistan have really kind of come through, and they've succeeded as well. They've done really well at them. They've never done well when the Olympics is on the line, though. They always kind of fall at
Oh
that
no.
when there's because U23s work in Asia. You have them every 2 years, and every two editions, one of them kind of qualifies you for the Olympics. Uzbekistan always pick the one that you're going to qualify for the Olympics to not do well at. So very similar to how they qualify for the World Cup, how they do at the Asian Cup. They're Asia's bridesmaids. They're never broken that seal. But yeah, as you say, it depends on the call-ups. It's in April, so Kuzanov might have to stay at his club side in France. Same for kind of Faizulev in Russia.
Mhm.
But if they do call them up, yeah, they've got the best team on paper by a mile. So it'll be either them, Saudis, somebody who's already been around that at that stage.
Yeah, Saudis had some pretty good youth players at this tournament as well. So it sounds like you're pro Katanic.
Mm,
I think I largely agree, but I need to see a little bit more. I think
mm.
I thought some of the squad selections were a little iffy. If there was one standout player from the Asian Cup for Uzbekistan, who would you nominate?
Um, I'm trying. Oh God.
I think you're gonna like mine, but I want you to go first. You got to go first. You're the guest.
Maybe I'm being overly critical by not picking Faizuliev, so I'll pick Huzanov. I think Huzanov was he
Mm,
showed his kind of credentials. Maybe I don't think there was anybody that performed above what I was expecting of them. So that might be a
okay.
bit critical. All of them played to kind of what their kind of average potential would be. I don't think anybody kind of really kind of had a real star traction. Faizuliev did when he first came in against India, but then maybe didn't get hit the ground running after that. So yeah, yeah, that's probably why I was stuttering. I don't think there was anybody that really kind of put themselves out there as being, oh well, now that we can build this around them.
Yeah,
I think this is
yeah,
the same team as we went in with, just needing a little bit more freshening up. So who was your pick?
yeah. It wasn't Fazuliev. Although I do think he was impressive. I'm gonna go with Ishmurodov, which is funny because we're going
Hmm.
with two center backs there for Uzbekistan, which I feel like we talked about in the OG version going into the Asian Cup, how they used to be like super defensive and
Hmm.
pragmatic, and the fan base they want nils, and Katanic is kind of getting them playing more attacking football. And yet here we are after the Asian Cup, and we're like, man, those two center backs for Uzbekistan, standout players. I think the future is bright with this national team, and I hope that the curse of not performing when it matters,
Hmm.
which kind of sounds like Iran to me. It sounds like they're both Central Asian too. I don't know what's going on that part of the world. Something obviously is in the air or something, but I do hope that they can get it done. You guys in the comments, let us know what your biggest takeaway was from the step countries. You know, were you impressed? Was there any particular player that stood out to you? Were you disappointed in maybe an Uzbekistan or a Kyrgyzstan based on how they performed? Let us know in the comments. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. And if you guys are listening on streaming platforms, please give the podcast a 5-star rating. And before that, you need to check out Martin Lowe on Twitter and the Asian Game Podcast. I'll put all the links to all his work in the description of this video. Martin, as always, phenomenal time. I love talking Asian ball with you. We'll have to get you back on maybe after like a qualifying window or maybe the U23 Asian Cup. We'll have you on to give a little assessment or something. I really do appreciate the time.
No worries. Thank you for having me. And yeah, I'd love to come back on again. Loving your work.
Thank you. The invitation will be in the mail. Look out for that. You guys have been awesome. We'll see y'all in the next one.